Hi there, and thanks so much for joining me for another video. My name is Erin Eno, and today we're going to paint a snowy Christmas tree complete with glowing lights. So grab your paints and let's get started. Before we start painting, I'll just go through my materials for you. Today I'm using Arches cold press watercolor paper. It's 140 pound, 100% cotton. I've trimmed it down to 5x7 because I thought I may want to use this as a Christmas card, and that's a pretty standard Christmas card size, just for the front anyway. I've also taped it down to a board. I usually do that to prevent buckling. We're not going to be using a ton of water on this, but I did want a white border around it, so that's optional. That's totally up to you. I have my Van Gogh paints in my palette. I have a jar of water and a paper towel. If you usually use like a face towel to blot your brushes off on, you will actually need a paper towel for this. And you'll see once we get into things, you'll also need a pencil, or maybe you won't. I do, because I just want to pre-draw things. And for brushes, I have a Curry's store brand brush in a size 10 round, and I have two Princeton snap brushes, one in a size 2 round and one in a size 0. Okay, and I will also be using my Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white. If you don't have this, you can use white gouache, anything opaque, white gouache, white acrylic, even a white gel pen. So now we'll just get started. Okay, so I'm just going to mark where I want my tree to go, just so I have something as a guide. I just want it roughly, well, pretty much in the center of the paper. And I want it to end about here, and I want the top of it to end about here, maybe a little lower. And then there will be like a star on top of that. Okay. And then I also want to mark my horizon line, which is going to be about here, and we're going to do maybe a little lower. We're going to do hills, snowy hills back here. Okay. So I just need that in there lightly, just as a guide. Okay, and I'm also going to mark the width of my tree, just so I am able to keep it kind of symmetrical. Now, what I'm drawing is actually a little narrower than my final tree will be, but it's more of an idea as to where to put the branches, and then they'll all kind of extend a little bit past that. And now I'm just going to go in and put in a wash of a bluish kind of purpley sky, and I'm going to use indigo and a bit of carmine, because I want it just to be a little on the purpley side. And we'll probably have to do this in a couple of layers. Maybe I'll add some ultramarine blue as well. So I'm just going to start with a wash first, and then kind of tap in where I want all that excess pigment to go, because I want it a little lighter around the tree. I maybe should be using a bigger brush, but I'll be okay. So I'm just keeping the paint moving and just dragging it down. And I want it lighter around the tree. And it's okay if you just go right into the tree, because, like I say, the branches will be covering that. So I guess we'll just set that kind of the snow hill line. Like so. And this will dry lighter, and then we can go in and add a little more, or maybe I'll just kind of tap it in now and kind of let it bleed out, see how that goes. Why don't we try that? Okay, so before that dries, I'm just going to tap in a little more of the dark blue just towards the upper corners and let that bleed out. So while that's bleeding out and this area is still damp, we're going to go in and add some trees on the horizon line. Okay, so I'm hoping I don't get a hard edge there, but we'll see. So for the trees on the horizon line, I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to use my number 2. Okay, and I've got some green here. I think it's sap green and a little bit of carmine and some ultramarine blue just to deepen it up. Make it a nice dark green. Okay, so we're just going to add some little trees, little pine trees in the distance. This is still a little wet. It might bleed a little more than I want, but we'll see. It's not quite as dark as I would like, so I'm going to add a little bit of that purpley blue sky. Just kind of squiggling back and forth. Like I say, these will be in the distance, so they just kind of resemble trees in the distance. Okay, I'm not going to get overly concerned with those because they're not the star of the show. And obviously, I could have done a better job doing trees in the background, but I can touch them up later, I guess, if I want. I'm going to take my number 2 brush, so it's just not sopping wet but damp, and I'm just going to kind of add some water here. And scrub it away a bit because that's where I want my star on the tree to go. So I'm just going to blot that up like that. See, I'm just scrubbing and kind of lifting that purple background. Okay. I say purple, I didn't really want a purple sky, but I wanted it kind of a purpley blue, but it's a little late now. Okay, so now we've got a place where the glow from the star is going to go. So I'm going to try to see if I can fix up that sky a bit. I'm just not happy with it. It's too it's too severe a break as it goes to the corners, so I'm just going to re-wet this and come down into those corners again. So I'm just going to tap back in here and see if I can get it to bleed the way I really wanted it to in the first place. Okay, so I'm running dangerously close to, if I haven't gotten there already, to overworking this. So I'm just going to let this finish doing what it's doing, and then we will carry on. I'm not going to use a heat tool because I want the bleed to bleed out. Okay, that's actually blending the way I want it to now. So I'm going to go back in and fix up these pine trees in the distance here. So I'm just using a darker green this time, with as well as the carmine in there. I've added a little bit of black. I say the star of the show is the main tree, so I'm not too concerned about these guys. Good thing too, because I really sucked it up. Okay, and we will let it completely dry before we start the Christmas tree, the main Christmas tree, not these stupid goofy ones here. Okay, I've decided that I want to bring some of these trees in a little closer. So I'm just going to do some lighter ones. Maybe these will be better than my other ones. So I've made a mental note that I need to practice my trees in the distance. So I will be doing that. But I think it's all good. I think in the end, it'll all be good. Okay, so I'm mixing the main green for, the green for the main tree. I've got a little bit of sap green, a little bit of hooker's green light. Okay, and I'm going to add in some ultramarine blue, just so it's just not such a stark green. And I think that should do it. Well, maybe a little bit of carmine too, to deepen it up a bit, because it is kind of a night scene. So I'm just tapping the excess water off my brush, and then we're just going to start drawing in kind of rough, kind of squiggly branches, going from the star down. Okay, so you're just kind of tapping. And I want all my branches to kind of aim up a little bit. So I can just draw that middle kind of trunk and just go off from there. Okay, when putting it, making it a little denser in the middle. So I'm just tapping just to get some kind of rough branches. Nothing has to be perfect here because it's nature, and that's the good thing. This one might be a little wider than I had first wanted, but you know, some of your branches can be narrower than the one above it, because in nature, like I say, it's not perfect. So I'm just going to keep doing this, and I will speed this up until we get all our branches in. Okay, so now that our tree is laid down, I am going to paint in the yellow for the star. So what I want to do is, because I want this tree to dry just a little bit before we go back at it. So I'm just going to wet up the area where I had kind of picked it up for the star. And I'm going to go into my yellow. I'm going to use Azo Yellow Medium. It's kind of like a warmer yellow. I don't want to use like a lemon yellow. I want it to be a little on the warm side. And I'm going to just put a light wash, so I'm getting most of that pigment off my brush. And I'm just going to tap it in here where I had first picked up the purple pigment and then added the water. So you can see it's just the slightest kind of glow of yellow there. Okay. And I can tap more in just to brighten it up a bit. Like so. Okay, and while that's doing that, I'm going to take my number 10 again and go into the purple that we used for the background, and I'm just going to get a really light wash of it on my brush. I'm just going to put the slightest highlight of it up here on the snow. Okay, just so it looks like it's kind of reflecting from the sky a bit, and it's not so stark up there. Careful when you get close to the tree. Okay, just like that. That water's pretty dirty, so I'm just going to fade that out a bit. Just like that. Okay, just so it's got a little bit of something going on up there. Okay. We'll also do that to this area on close to the tree. Again, I'm not going to go right up to the tree. Just kind of indicate a bit of a mound there. Okay, so I'm going to clean off my brush, just kind of drag this down a bit. Just so it's a little more believable. That might be a little much, but I want to drag it down just a little bit, because it is more of a night scene. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start putting in some areas where there's going to be lights on the tree. I'm going to use my number 2. Okay, so I'm wetting my brush, and I'm just going to put dabs of water where I want some lights on this tree. Okay, so I'm basically scrubbing away the paint that we put on the tree. Okay, so I've got one there. I'll put one up here. Just like so. And then I'm going to just kind of ball up my paper towel a bit and just tap, not tap, blot, I mean, that paint off. Okay, okay, so I'm just re-wetting and scrubbing. You can clean your brush off every now and then. So that just blot them. Okay, so like I say, I'm not going to go nuts. I just want a few in there to add some kind of sparkle to the tree. I think that's probably, just thinking. I don't want to go crazy with it. Maybe one up here. Okay, so now I'm going to go back into that Azo yellow medium with the number 2 still. Okay, and I don't want it sopping wet, so I'm just going to go and put that yellow in everywhere we've picked up the green. I know it looks silly now, just looks like yellow balls all over the tree, but it won't. Trust me. I'm going to add a little bit more to the star as well. I'm just going to take some of the pigment off my brush and just kind of see if I can get a little more of a yellow glow around this guy. I don't want to reactivate that purple, because if I do, this will just turn into a muddy mess. So that should work. Now I'm going to go in with my number 1 brush, and I want to use a teeny tiny brush. Actually, I'm going to use fresh water as well, because that water is pretty purpley now. Okay, so like I say, I don't want a ton of water on here, which is why I want to use a small brush, and I just want to feather out the yellow a bit, just so it's got a little bit of a softer edge to it. Okay, so just kind of really what I'm doing here is, because the brush is damp, it's kind of reactivating the green, and I can soften that edge, that blend between the yellow and the green, so they don't just look like yellow balls on the tree. Does that make sense? I hope so. I hope it's picking up and you're kind of getting where I'm going with this. So I want them to start to look like circles of glowing circles. Yeah, glowing circles. So just keep cleaning off your brush and going back in and getting water, so you can make these blends nice and soft. Okay, so they need to dry before we go back in with another step. And while they are drying, I'm going to take my number 10 again and go into the yellow and just get a light wash of yellow, and I'm just going to brush that down here, so it's a little bit of a glow from the lights on the tree. Okay, I'm also going to take that purple and just kind of blend this out a bit so the tree's not so stark underneath. It was just kind of going like from tree to snow, and I didn't like that, so just soften up the bottom of the tree. Okay, and bring in that yellow kind of glow that's going to be on the snow there. That'll dry lighter as well. So I am going to speed this up with my heat tool because the blending's done, so I'm good with that. Okay, so now that that is done, I am going to go in and get my white now, and with my number 2 again. Actually, you know what? I think I will use my 0. I'm going to mix up a fair amount in here. I'm going to go into each of the yellow yellow balls and just add a dot of white. Actually, that might be even a little bit too opaque. Let me wet that and get that up a bit. I don't want it quite that opaque. There we go. So I'm just putting a little dot of white in the middle of each light, and that will be like the brightest point of each bulb. And then the yellow around it is the glow. Okay, and we'll also, I'm going to thin this out a little bit more. And I'm just going to do just a fine line on the star. Okay, and even that is too dark. I'm just going to go over that with a damp paper towel and just kind of blot some of it up, just so it's not so stark, like that. Okay, and I'm just going to go soften up the edges on some of these dots. Just like that. Okay, so now I'm going to take my number 2 brush, get some more white, and we will start putting some snow on the tree. Just on the top of some of the branches. You can even go to the lights on some of them. Okay, so you've got snow on your tree. Okay, we can also go in and get some more of the dark green, and I can add a little bit of black to it this time to make it really dark. Okay, and just tap in towards the center on the tree on some of the branches, just to give it some depth, just like that. Now I'm going to go in with some very watered, well, not very watered, some more watered down white. Okay, because I don't want to go nuts with this, but I want to cover up the tree a bit and just put some snow in the background here. So we will take off the tape and see what we are left with, and hopefully I'll be somewhat happy. So there you have it. There is your finished Christmas tree, complete with glowing lights. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you found it helpful and that you will give this a try on your own. If you do and you're on Instagram, please share your work and tag me so I can have a look. As always, if you want to see more beginner-friendly tutorials and you haven't subscribed already, please do, and hit that notification bell to know when I have new videos up. That's it for today, guys. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.